I spent $1,300 in 3 months of my life to answer one question: which PS5 games are actually worth $70 in 2025? And before you click off thinking this is another top games list where I'm gonna tell you Elden Ring is good, yeah, we know. Let me explain why I did this to myself, because right now the gaming discourse is completely broken. Every single AAA release gets called a masterpiece by someone with early access and a mortgage payment due. Every Reddit thread devolves into wait for sale versus support the devs. And meanwhile, you're standing there in the PlayStation Store at 11 p.m., credit card in hand, wondering if you're about to spend the price of a decent dinner on something you'll uninstall in 4 hours. So I made a rule: I'd only keep games that justified their full $70 price tag, not games that are pretty good for what they are, not games that are worth it on sale. Games that made me forget I spent money at all. Games where halfway through I caught myself thinking, I would have paid more for this. 19 games survived. Some of them are obvious. Some are gonna make you mad. But every single one of them delivered something that cheaper games simply cannot. Let's get into it. Spider-Man 2 isn't just a sequel, it's Insomniac showing you what happens when a studio has infinite confidence and zero interest in playing it safe. This game takes everything people loved about the first 2 games, doubles it, then adds a symbiote suit that fundamentally changes how you approach combat for an entire act of the story. You're not just swinging through Manhattan anymore, you're launching yourself across the East River to Queens, then gliding to Brooklyn, all without a single loading screen, and the city feels alive in a way that most open worlds fake with crowd density. There's a mission where you're chasing Kraven through a burning building as Peter, and the DualSense makes you feel every creak of the structure about to collapse. Then there's the sequence where you're Venom, actually playing as Venom, rampaging through Oscorp. And it's one of those rare moments where a game lets you be the monster you've always wanted to be, guilt-free. The story hits different too. This isn't Marvel quip-fest bullshit. This is Peter struggling with the symbiote's influence while Miles tries to figure out who he is without living in Peter's shadow, and it gets genuinely emotional in the 3rd act. I'm not making this up. There's a scene with Harry Osborn that made me put the controller down for a second, and the reason this is worth full price. It's not just that it's 30 hours of premium content, it's that Insomniac packed it with so much spectacle and refinement that it feels like you're playing 3 different Spider-Man games at once. You feel like you're living inside a Spider-Man movie that's somehow better than the actual movies. Helldivers 2 is what happens when a developer says, what if we made the most chaotic co-op shooter ever, made friendly fire mandatory, then watched the internet lose its mind. This is the only game on this list that costs $40, but it's worth mentioning because it does more with 40 than most games do with 70. The premise is simple: you're a disposable soldier in a fascist regime, dropping onto alien planets to spread managed democracy via orbital strikes and automatic weapons. But the genius is in the chaos. You call in a supply drop, your teammate walks into the landing zone, and suddenly you've team killed them with a care package traveling at terminal velocity. You're running from a horde of bugs. You call in an airstrike, you didn't account for the blast radius, and now 3 of you are dead and 1 guy is screaming into voice chat. It's friendly fire as game design philosophy, and it creates these unscripted moments of comedy and tension that you cannot get in scripted campaigns. There's a mission type where you have to activate artillery, and my squad spent 10 minutes arguing about who gets to fire it. Then we accidentally shelled our own extraction point and had to fight our way out with no ammo. That story is worth $40 by itself, and it keeps getting better. The developers are actively running a galactic war where the entire player base contributes to liberating or losing planets, and it's not just a progress bar, it actually affects which missions are available. You feel like you're part of something bigger, even when you're just a grunt who dies 12 times per mission. Monster Hunter Wilds is Capcom finally making the Monster Hunter game that people who don't play Monster Hunter always wished existed. It's still brutally difficult. It still makes you learn attack patterns and craft gear from monster parts. But now it's wrapped in this jaw-dropping open world where ecosystems actually function, weather changes mid-hunt, and you're riding your sacred mount across deserts watching herds of herbivores scatter as a thunderstorm rolls in. The combat is the best it's ever been. Every weapon type feels completely distinct. You can play 300 hours with a great sword and then pick up dual blades, and it's like playing a different game. And the monsters are not just damage sponges. They limp when wounded. They flee to other areas to rest. They fight each other for territory. There's a hunt where you're tracking this lightning wolf creature through a canyon, and halfway through a sandstorm hits, and you lose visual on it, and you're tracking it by sound alone with the 3D audio doing absolutely disgusting things to your spatial awareness. The multiplayer is seamless now. You can drop into a friend's hunt mid-fight, help them break a monster's horns, carve your rewards, and leave. No lobbies, no waiting rooms, just hunting. And the gear progression is still that perfect Monster Hunter loop where you spend 2 hours grinding one monster so you can craft a sword that lets you fight an even bigger monster. It's Skinner box design, but it's honest about it, and when you finally craft that full armor set and take down the monster that's been destroying you for a week, you feel like a god. This is worth $70 because you'll play it for 200 hours and still have weapons you haven't tried. Horizon Forbidden West is Guerrilla Games flexing. Just pure technical flex. This is the best looking game on PS5, and I will fight anyone who disagrees in the comments. The robot dinosaurs are back, and now you're hunting them across a post-apocalyptic California and Nevada that looks so photorealistic, you'll stop mid-quest to screenshot a sunset. The water rendering is absurd. The facial animations are absurd. There's a mission underwater, actually underwater, with full swimming mechanics, and it looks better than most games look on dry land. But it's not just pretty. The combat is deeper than the first game. Every machine has weak points, elemental resistances, parts you can tear off and use as weapons. You're fighting a Slitherfang, this giant cobra robot, and you're targeting its Earthgrinder components while dodging poison and trying not to get crushed. And it feels like a puzzle boss from a Zelda game mixed with a FromSoft fight. When you finally take it down, you're breathing hard in real life. The story gets weird in a good way. The first game was about uncovering the mystery of the old world. This one goes full sci-fi with ancient AI and space stuff and plot twists that genuinely surprised me. Aloy is still great as a protagonist, sarcastic, competent, clearly exhausted by everyone's nonsense, and the side quests are actually good. There's a quest line about a tribe dealing with extinction that's more thoughtful than most games' main stories. The complete edition comes with the Burning Shores DLC, which adds an entire new region and a romance option that made certain corners of the internet very mad for very stupid reasons. It's worth full price because it's 80 hours of content that maintains quality the entire time, and it's the definitive version of one of PlayStation's flagship franchises. Dragon's Dogma 2 is Capcom making the most stubborn, uncompromising open-world RPG in years, and I mean that as the highest compliment. This game does not care about your convenience. There's no fast travel, there's one save file that autosaves constantly, so your mistakes are permanent. If you want to change your appearance, you need a rare item. If you want to reset your skills, good luck. And somehow, it's incredible. You're the Arisen, marked by a dragon, traveling with AI companions called pawns that you can customize and share with other players. The world is massive and filled with actual danger. You'll be walking to a quest marker, night falls, and suddenly you're being hunted by a chimera in complete darkness while your pawns scream warnings. There's no map markers for most things. You find stuff by exploring or by listening to NPCs. It's archaic in the best way. The combat is pure action RPG chaos. You're a mystic spear hand teleporting around the battlefield, or you're a mage dropping meteors on dragons, or you're a thief climbing on a griffin's back mid-flight and stabbing it until it crashes. The pawn system creates these emergent moments where your borrowed pawns will suddenly know a shortcut or a boss weakness from another player's world, and it feels like genuine cooperation across the player base. There's a quest where you're escorting an ox cart across the map and you get ambushed by bandits. Then a griffin attacks, then it starts raining, and by the end you've lost half your health items and all your dignity, but you made it, and it's the most satisfied you felt in an open world game in years. It's worth full price because it respects your time by wasting it in the most deliberate way possible. You feel like you're on an actual adventure, not checking boxes on a Ubisoft map. Infinite Wealth is the biggest, most ambitious game in the Yakuza series, and that's saying something considering these games regularly have 100-hour runtime and a dozen mini-games. This time, Ichiban goes to Hawaii, and the game becomes this beautiful mix of crime drama, comedy, life sim, and turn-based RPG where you beat people with bicycles. The story is genuinely great. Ichiban is trying to find his mother while dealing with fallout from the previous game, and then Kiryu shows up. Actual Kiryu, the series protagonist for 2 decades, and he's dealing with cancer and trying to make peace with his past. The game bounces between goofy sub-stories where you're managing a resort island or racing go-karts, and then hits you with emotional scenes about mortality and family that have no right being this good in a game where you summon a crawfish to attack enemies. The combat is turn-based, but somehow hype. You're using the environment, smashing people with traffic cones, drop-kicking them into walls, and your party members have jobs like Desperado and Housekeeper and Geodancer. It's absurd. It's perfect. There's a boss fight on a yacht where the stage is sinking and you're fighting in waist-deep water, and it's one of the most creative RPG encounters I've seen, and the content density is insane. There are 80 sub-stories. There's a whole Pokemon-style collecting game called Sujimon. There's karaoke, batting cages, a dating app minigame, and an entire farm management simulator. You will not finish everything in this game. It's impossible. You'll play 90 hours and still have quest lines you haven't touched. It's worth full price because it's 3 games in 1, and all 3 are excellent. You feel like you're living a second life in Hawaii, where occasionally you beat up Yakuza with a baseball bat. Alan Wake 2 is Remedy at their absolute peak, making the weirdest OEA game in years and somehow getting away with it. This is a survival horror game wrapped in a meta-narrative about storytelling, and it's so aggressively artsy that it opens with a full musical number. You play as 2 characters, Saga Anderson, an FBI agent investigating ritual murders in the Pacific Northwest, and Alan Wake, a writer trapped in a nightmare dimension trying to write his way out. The game switches between them, and their stories intersect in ways that break your brain. There's a mechanic where Saga uses a mind place to piece together clues, and Alan uses a writer's room to rewrite reality, and both systems feed into this larger meta commentary about how stories shape perception. The horror is oppressive. You're in the woods at night with a flashlight and limited ammo, and the enemies are these taken creatures that phase in and out of shadows, and the only way to kill them is to burn away the darkness first. It's classic survival horror tension, and Remedy nails it. There's a sequence in a nursing home that's one of the scariest things I've played, but then the game does something insane. There are live action segments. There are in-universe TV shows you can watch. There's a chapter where you're navigating a surreal talk show set, and it's shot like an actual David Lynch film. The production value is absurd. This feels like a prestige TV show that you're controlling. It's worth full price because it's not just a game, it's an experience. You feel like you're inside someone's fever dream where every frame is intentional. If you like your horror weird and your narratives dense, this is essential. Lies of P is a Korean studio making a Souls-like based on Pinocchio, and before you roll your eyes, let me tell you, this is the best non-FromSoft Souls-like ever made. Yes, better than Nioh. Yes, I said it. The setting is Belle Epoque era Krat, a city overrun by murderous puppets, and you're P, a puppet trying to become human by lying. The premise sounds goofy, but the execution is dead serious. The city is gorgeous and horrifying. Cobblestone streets soaked in rain, street lamps flickering, and puppet corpses everywhere. The atmosphere is Bloodborne meets steampunk, and it's oppressive in the best way. The combat is tight. You have a weapon system where you mix and match blades and handles to create hybrid weapons, so you're constantly experimenting. The parry system is the best in any Souls-like. It's not a full block, it's a perfect guard that requires timing, and when you nail it, it feels incredible. There's a boss called the King of Puppets. That's one of the best fights in the genre. Full stop. 3 phases, changing movesets, and a second phase transition that made me yell at my TV. The Overture DLC adds a whole new area and super bosses, and it's worth getting the gold edition for that alone. The story has multiple endings based on how much you lie, and there's genuine moral weight to your choices. Do you become human by embracing deception, or do you stay true and remain a puppet? It's surprisingly thoughtful. It's worth full price because it's a 40-hour Souls-like that respects FromSoft's design philosophy while adding its own identity. You feel like you're discovering a dark fairy tale that Bloodborne fans have been waiting years for. Remnant 2 is a co-op shooter where every run is different, and I mean actually different, not enemy placement changes different. The game procedurally generates entire quest lines, bosses, and story branches, so your playthrough will have content that your friend's playthrough doesn't have. You'll be comparing notes and realizing you fought completely different bosses in the same area. The setup is simple: interdimensional portals, multiple worlds, and you're a survivor trying to stop the end of everything. But the execution is wild. You're building a character from archetypes: summoner, gunslinger, engineer, and you can dual class, so you're mixing abilities in ways that create completely unique builds. You're a summoner engineer dropping turrets and minions, or you're a medic alchemist turning your squad into unkillable sustain tanks. The worlds are gorgeous and varied. You're in a decrepit cathedral fighting cultists, then you're in a neon-lit cyberpunk city, then you're in a desert with Egyptian gods. Each world has hidden paths, alternate bosses, and secrets that require multiple playthroughs to find. There's a boss in the labyrinth that only spawns if you complete a specific puzzle, and the community is still finding secrets months after launch. The co-op is where it shines. 3 players, different builds, and you're coordinating roles. Someone's tanking, someone's applying status effects, someone's doing DPS, and when it clicks, it feels like you're running a raid in Destiny, but with actual build variety. There's a boss that splits into 3 separate enemies, and each player has to solo one while staying close enough to share buffs. It's chaotic and perfect. It's worth full price because the replayability is insane. You'll play through the campaign 5 times and still see new stuff. You feel like you're exploring a multiverse that's different for everyone. RE Village Gold Edition is Capcom taking the best parts of RE4 and RE7, blending them and adding a DLC campaign that's better than most full games. If you haven't played it, you're missing one of the best horror action games of the generation. The base game is that perfect Resident Evil mix of horror and camp. You're Ethan Winters, searching for your daughter in a European village filled with werewolves, vampires, and a lady who's 9 feet tall and broke the internet. The game knows it's ridiculous and leans into it. Lady Dimitrescu's castle is pure gothic horror. The Beneviento house is a psychological nightmare that has 0 combat and is somehow the scariest section. Heisenberg's factory is a heavy metal boss rush. It's 4 different horror games in one. The combat feels great. You're managing resources, upgrading weapons, and fighting mini-bosses that require actual strategy. The Sturm boss, a propeller engine monster that charges you in a factory, is pure panic, and the final act goes full action spectacle in a way that shouldn't work, but absolutely does. The Gold Edition includes Shadows of Rose, a DLC where you play as Ethan's daughter 16 years later, navigating a nightmarish realm, and it's a return to pure survival horror, limited ammo, fewer resources, and a mechanic where you can destroy enemy weak points with magic. It's RE7 meets Silent Hill, and it's fantastic. It's worth full price because you're getting 20 hours of base game plus 4 hours of DLC that's all killer, no filler. You feel like you're in a horror movie that you can actually survive. The Witcher 3 on PS5 is CD Projekt Red, proving that old games can be made new again. This is the definitive version of one of the best RPGs ever made, and if you missed it the first time, this is your chance. The base game is still incredible. You're Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter searching for his adopted daughter across a war-torn fantasy world. The main story is epic. The side quests are better than most games' main quests. There's a quest line about a haunted tower that's more memorable than entire 8AA campaigns. The writing is sharp, the characters are complex, and the world feels lived in. The PS5 version adds ray tracing, 60 frames per second performance mode, and faster loading. The visual upgrade is significant, lighting is dramatically improved, and the game looks like it released in 2024. But more importantly, the DLC is included, and the DLC is some of the best content in gaming. Hearts of Stone is a 10-hour expansion with one of the best villains in RPG history. Blood and Wine adds an entire new region the size of some full games, and it's a perfect farewell to Geralt. The combat is still divisive. It's not Dark Souls, it's more about preparation and potion use, but it's satisfying once it clicks. You're researching monster weaknesses, crafting oils and bombs, and then executing a contract. There's a contract for a Leshen in the woods, and you're tracking it, setting traps, and the fight is this tense dance where one mistake means death. It's worth full price because you're getting 150 plus hours of content with all DLC, and it's the best version of the game. You feel like you're playing a fantasy epic that respects your time and intelligence. Assassin's Creed Shadows is Ubisoft finally going to Japan, and after years of fan demand, they actually delivered. You're playing as two protagonists, Naoe, a shinobi who does classic stealth, and Yasuke, a historical samurai who does direct combat, and you can switch between them for most missions. The open world feudal Japan is stunning. You're exploring Kyoto during cherry blossom season, infiltrating castles, and the game nails the aesthetic. The parkour is the best it's been since Unity. You're grappling onto rooftops using shadows to stay hidden, and the stealth is actually tense again. As Naoe, you're a ghost. As Yasuke, you're a walking tank who can break through doors and fight entire squads. The dual protagonist system works because they play completely differently. Naoe has a button-devoted crouch, smoke bombs, and instant assassinations. Yasuke has a posture-based combat system like Sekiro, where you're deflecting attacks and breaking enemy guards. It's two games in one, and both are great. The story is about the unification of Japan and the conflict between honor and survival. It gets surprisingly dark. There's a sequence in a burning village that's genuinely hard to watch. The dynamic weather and seasons affect gameplay. Winter missions have snow that shows footprints. Summer festivals provide crowds to blend into. It's worth full price because it's the most refined Assassin's Creed in years, and it's the Japan setting fans have wanted for a decade. You feel like you're living in a samurai film where you control the narrative. The Nioh collection is Team Ninja bundling both Nioh games with all DLC, and it's the best value on this list. You're getting 2 full games, each 60+ hours, with the most complex combat system in any action game not made by Platinum. Nioh 1 is about William, an Irish samurai in the 1600s Japan, fighting yokai and historical figures. The story is whatever, but the combat is legendary. You have stances, high, mid, low, and each stance changes your moveset entirely. Your managing key, stamina. Keep pulsing to recover it, switching stances mid-combo, and using guardian spirits for buffs. The skill ceiling is absurd. You can play 100 hours and still learn new techniques. Nioh 2 improves everything. You create your own character, and you can transform into a yokai mid-fight with a burst counter system that's the most satisfying parry in any game. The level design is better. The bosses are better. There's a boss called Otakamaru that took me 50 attempts, and when I finally beat him, I felt like I'd earned a degree in that fight. The loot system is Diablo meets Dark Souls. You're constantly getting new gear, min-maxing stats, and building around specific playstyles. You can be a heavy armor tank, a magic caster, a dodge-focused DPS, or a hybrid. The build variety is insane. Both games have DLC that adds super bosses and new weapons. The DLC bosses are harder than anything in the base game, and they're completely optional, which makes them even more satisfying to beat. It's worth full price because you're getting 150+ hours of premium action combat with infinite replayability. You feel like you're mastering a martial art that happens to involve fighting demons. No Man's Sky is one of the greatest redemption arcs in gaming history, and the PS5 version is the definitive way to play it. This is a game that launched as a disaster in 2016, and has since been updated for free into one of the best space exploration games ever made. You're exploring a procedurally generated universe with billions of planets, and every single one is explorable. You're mining resources, building bases, upgrading your ship, and the gameplay loop is pure zen. You'll land on a planet with purple grass and floating islands, catalog the wildlife, build a little outpost, then jump to the next system. The updates have added everything. Base building is now full-on settlement management. Multiplayer lets you explore with friends. There's a permadeath mode, a full story campaign, underwater exploration, mech suits, freighters you can command like a fleet admiral, and a recent update added fishing. Actual fishing in space. The PS5 version runs at 60 frames per second with improved visuals and faster loading between planets. The 3D audio makes space feel vast and lonely in the best way. You're floating outside your ship during a repair, and the sound design makes you feel the vacuum. The reason this is worth full price, and I know it goes on sale constantly, is because Hello Games has supported this game for 8 years with free updates, and they show no signs of stopping. You're not just buying a game, you're buying into a live service that actually respects you. You feel like you're exploring the universe, and occasionally you'll stumble on another player's base and realize you're not alone, and it's quietly profound. Hades is Supergiant Games making the perfect roguelike, and even though it came out years ago, the PS5 version is still essential if you somehow missed it. You're Zagreus, son of Hades, trying to escape the underworld, and every run is different. You're choosing boons from Olympian gods that modify your abilities. Zeus gives you chain lightning, Aphrodite gives you weak effects, Dionysus gives you hangover damage. The build variety is absurd. One run, you're a crit-based dash build. Next run, you're a cast-focused build that turns enemies into stone. The combat is fast, tight, and incredibly satisfying. You're dodging through projectiles, timing special attacks, and each weapon has hidden aspects that change how it plays. The spear becomes Achilles' spear, and suddenly you have a recall mechanic. The bow becomes Chiron's bow, and your special homes in on targets. It's 6 weapons that feel like 20, but the real genius is the story. Every time you die, you're back in Hades' throne room, and you talk to NPCs. They remember your previous runs, relationships develop. You're romancing Thanatos or Megaera, befriending Sisyphus, and slowly uncovering why Zagreus wants to leave in the first place. The voice acting is incredible. The music is incredible. The art is incredible. The roguelike structure means you'll play this for 50 hours and still see new dialogue. The game respects your time. Runs are 30 to 45 minutes, and you make tangible progress even when you die. You're unlocking new weapons, upgrading the house, and each run feels meaningful. It's worth full price because it's the gold standard for roguelikes, and it proves that replayability and narrative depth aren't mutually exclusive. You feel like you're escaping hell one run at a time, and every death is just another conversation with your dysfunctional immortal family. Alright, that's the list. 19 games that justify $70. Some of you are mad I didn't include your favorite. Some of you think I'm insane for including Dragon's Dogma 2 with its one save file. And that's fine. This list is personal, and your mileage will absolutely vary. But here's the thing, every single one of these games gave me that feeling where I forgot I spent money, where I was so absorbed in the world, or the combat, or the story that the price tag evaporated. That's what full price should feel like. Not, I hope this was worth it. Not, I'll play it eventually. Just pure immersion. So drop a comment. Which full price PS5 game made you forget money existed? Which one made you feel like you got away with robbery even though you paid $70? And if your answer is a game I didn't mention, that's perfect, because it means there's more greatness out there than any one list can capture. If this video helped you avoid wasting money on overhyped garbage, hit the subscribe button. If it made you add 5 games to your wish list and your partner's gonna kill you, hit the like button so I don't feel guilty alone. Next time, we're talking about the games you should absolutely wait for a sale on, because not everything deserves full price, and some of those games are still great. They're just not spend grocery money great. Until then, I'll be in the comments defending my Helldivers 2 take. See you there.